Hello everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at how we can import survey data into Google Earth. So here I have a spreadsheet with some points that were captured for a project where we were helping to design a plantation. Each of these points represents the location of a plant on the site. In the first column we have the names or numbers. In the second column we have the latitude coordinates of the point and then the longitude coordinates. And in the fourth column, we have a description. In this case, we don't have a description per se. There is just this 0 in each field because the points that we created were all grouped. And you can see at the bottom that the spreadsheet is separated into different sheets. We have the magenta group, the yellow group, and so on. So we didn't have to have a description for the points. You could also include elevation values for each of those points just by creating another column. And then this will be the column that contains the elevation value for each point. In this case, we did not have an elevation value, so we don't have a fifth column. Now, something very important, if you're going to import these points into applications like Google Earth as well as most other applications, then it is important to reserve the very first row for the title headers of each column. In this case, we don't have title headers for this particular project because we were importing these points into a survey device that did not require that. But in 99% of cases, you will have to reserve the very first row for the title headers. So since we're importing these points into Google Earth, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to create a new row above all of the other rows and input the title headers for each column. So to do that, I'm just going to right click on the first row and choose to insert a new row above this one. And here I'll type in the name for each column. The first one will be name. Then we have latitude, longitude, and description. And now with that done, we're ready to export out these points. We're going to export them out as a CSV file or a comma-separated values file. To do that, we can go under the File menu here in Google Spreadsheet, and then go down under download and choose comma separated values or CSV. The points were downloaded and we can see them here on my desktop, and we can see how the formatting looks like. It's basically the same as we have in the spreadsheet, except that instead of tabs, the values are separated by commas. So this is why the format is called comma separated values. From here, if we want to import this file into Google Earth, we can basically either just drag and drop it in the Google Earth viewport or go through the importing wizard. So I'm going to go into Google Earth and I'm going to go under the File menu and choose Import. I'll navigate to where the CSV file is at. If you do not see the file in your folder, make sure that from the bottom right corner here, you have set the file type to generic text or .txt or .csv. It is at the very top of the list of file formats. Now I'm going to select the file and click on Open. This data import wizard window is going to appear. Under the field type, we have to choose what type of file we have based on how the fields are being separated. We know that our fields are separated by commas, therefore it is a delimited file type. So this is what we're going to choose in this case. Then we have to choose how the values are being delimited. We know that they're being delimited by commas, so I'm just going to leave this at comma. At the very bottom, you have a preview of how your data looks like based on the criteria that you have set here. So if I change this from comma to tab, for instance, you can see that all of the values will be merged together into one tab. In this case, this doesn't work, but in other cases, it could be useful. For example, if you're importing addresses. And if I set this to space, it's going to do the exact same thing. But in this case, we have comma, so I'm going to bring it back to that. Then I'm going to click on Next. And now we have to specify which of the columns that we have refer to the latitude and longitude fields that Google Earth should read. And in this case, it's very obvious because we assigned the header titles to each of our columns. So Google Earth is going to automatically detect which is the latitude and which is the longitude column. But if it doesn't, you can simply expand this drop-down menu and choose the columns that you want to use manually. This is one of the reasons why it was very important to assign headers to your spreadsheet. Now, if you are using something like addresses, and let's say your delimitation is set to tab, then under the Select Latitude and Longitudes window, you can tick this box where it says this dataset does not contain any latitude and longitude information, but only street addresses. But I'm going to bring this back to comma delimitation and leave the latitude field to latitude and the longitude to longitude. Then I'm going to click on next. And under this window, you can set what kind of field type you have for each of your columns. Now, this is an optional step because Google Earth will, in most cases, automatically detect what is the field type. For example, under the name column, it is obvious that we have integer values because these are whole numbers. And under the latitude column, we have floating point values because our values are separated by a point. Now, in the case of the description column, normally this is going to be set to string if you have text descriptions. But since we assigned just a value of 0 to each of our fields in the spreadsheet, Google Earth is going to detect this to be integer. And with that done, we can click on finish. Now it's going to immediately prompt us saying that this file contains more features than what Google Earth's threshold is for importing features before it starts lagging. And it's going to give you a number of options that you can choose from. You can import just a sample of the data, in which case Google Earth will import up to the threshold that it can support. You can restrict the number of features just to the current view. In this case, you would have to first of all zoom into a small area of where the features are supposed to be imported at. And Google Earth is going to limit the number of features being imported just to your level of zoom. And if you want to import all features anyway, then you can just click on import all. Otherwise, you can also cancel out of this entire process by clicking on cancel. In this case, I'm fairly confident that Google Earth can handle all of these features because I've already imported all of them before. So I'm just going to click on import all. Now, as soon as I do that, it's going to ask me, do I want to apply a style template to these features? If you just want to import them without applying any styles to them and without assigning anything like a name or other values to your features, then you can click on no. But in this case, I want to apply a certain style to all of these points. So I'm going to click on yes. This style template window is going to appear, and under the name tab, we can tell Google Earth how we want it to name all of these features when it puts them under the list of places here. We can tell it to reference a certain field that we have under our data and take the information from that field and then apply it to all of our points. Now, for the name, I just simply want to use the information that is already under our name column. So under set name field, I'm going to set this to the name column. So Google Earth is going to take all of the information under this column and apply it to each of our features so that when it imports them and places them under the list of places here, they're going to be named correctly. Then under the color tab, you can choose how you want Google Earth to color all of these features. In this case, we have only points or place marks, so this is not really going to apply. And instead, we should go to the icon tab and set the style that we want to be applied to our points from there. But if you were importing something like line features or polygons, then you could automatically set a certain color to them from this tab here. For now, I'm just going to go to the icon tab. Now we have two options here. We can use the same icon for all features. And if we expand this drop-down menu here, we're going to see all of the icons that Google Earth allows us to use in this case. And there's really only one option in this case, which is this yellow pin place mark style. Now, I'm not satisfied with this. I would like to assign a custom place mark style. So for now, I'm not going to set anything from here. This is something that we can do later once the points have already been imported. And then finally, under the height tab, we can choose whether we want Google Earth to clamp these features to the ground or to assign a certain elevation to them from one of the fields that we have. In this case, like we already mentioned at the beginning, there is no elevation column as the fifth column here. So there really is no values that we can reference to assign the elevations to these points. But if you had such a field, if you had the elevation column with all of the elevation values for your points and you wanted to assign those, then you could set this option to set height from field and then simply reference that field from the drop-down menu here. In this case, I simply want to clamp all of these features to the ground, which is going to make them stick to the terrain, regardless of whether the 3D terrain is turned on or off inside of Google Earth. And with that done, I'm going to press OK. Google Earth will prompt me where I want to save out this style template in case I want to use it in the future. I'm just going to save it to my desktop and call this points. And I'll click on save. And now the points have been imported and they were placed under the list of places. We cannot see anything because the visibility is toggled off. I'm just going to toggle this box to the left of the name in order to make those visible. And now we can see all of our points here in the viewport. Now, because there's so many of them, if I try to pan the viewport, we can see that Google Earth is lagging a bit, but that's okay. Now, I want to just expand this folder out from the list of places here in order to see whether the correct names were applied to all of these points. I'm going to collapse the layers panel first, just by clicking on the title of the panel. And I'm going to untoggle the visibility of all of the points in order to improve the performance for the moment. And I'll also collapse the search panel. And now I'll expand the points folder. And now we can see that all of the points have been named correctly because we told Google Earth to reference the name field and apply that information to each point. One other thing I would like to do is to apply a custom style to all of these points. To do that automatically for all points, we have to have them under the same folder. In this case, they are already under the same folder, so we can just right-click on the folder itself and go under Properties. Now from here, we have to go under the Style and Color tab. And there is this button called Share Style. I'm going to click on that. This is going to apply the same style to all of our points. Now I'm going to click on the icon to the far right of the name field. And from here is where we can assign a custom icon to all of these points. Now, the current list of icons here is just the default icons that come with Google Earth, and you can use them if you want, but I want to import a custom one. So to do that, I'm just going to click on the Add Custom Icon button in the bottom left corner. And now I have to browse to where our icon is on our hard drive. So I'm going to click on the Browse button. And now I'm going to browse to this folder that has a collection of icons that I have prepared. These are also included under the project files for this video if you want to use them in your projects. I'm going to choose this red crosshair one and press on Open. And then I'm going to click on OK. And now we can see the icon here in the list of icons. And you can see that it was already applied to all of our points. If you want to, you can adjust its scale and its opacity. I'm going to set the scale down to something like 0.5. And I'm going to leave the opacity at 100%. And I'll press OK. If you also want to adjust the label style for each of these points, which is the name that we have for each of the point, then you can do that from the Style and Color tab here under the Label section. I'm going to set the scale for the label to 0.5, but everything else I'm going to leave at default. And with that done, I'm going to press OK. And now I'm going to check the visibility of our points folder just to see how the points look in the viewport. And so here they are, and everything looks correct to me. So from here, if I want to send out this entire folder to somebody else, I can just export it out as a KMZ. Now, it's important to export it out as a KMZ and not a KML format because we assigned a custom icon to these points. And this icon is an image file, and KMZ formats cannot contain images. If we want to send it out with our custom icon, then we have to export it out as a KMZ, so that the image will be contained in the file itself. To do that, I can simply right-click on the folder, go under Save Place As, navigate to a location on my hard drive, and make sure that the file type is set to KMZ and not KML. If the points did not have a custom icon assigned, then I could export those out as a KML. But since they have one, I will have to export them out as a KMZ. And with that done, I can just click on Save. And with that done, I think that this wraps it up for this video on importing survey data into Google Earth. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.